Okay, good morning. We're up to Siman Reish Samach Daled Seif Daled. Reish Samach Daled Seif Daled. We're talking about all the Dinei Hapsila and the Shemen, all the laws regarding the wicks and the oils that can be used for Hadlakas Neiros. So says the Mechaber in Seif Daled, Afilu Nosen Ma'at Shemen Zayis B'Shmeinim Elu She'enim Nimshachim V'oz Nimshachim Ein Madlikin Bohen. So we listed a whole bunch of oils earlier on in this simon. If a person adds a bit of shemen zayis to it, and therefore he wants to light with that, ein madlikin bohem, says the Mechaber. Says the Mishnah Berurah, avalim hoya ruboy mishmonim haksherim umiut me'apsulim. If however the majority is from good shemen and the minority is from shemen which is possible, then bottle beroiv umuta, then it would be okay. So when the Mechaber says ein madlikin bohem, that's only if it's only a little bit of kosher oil you've added to these posel oils. Continues Mishnah Berurah, ein madlikin. What's the concern? It goes rinan dilma osilad luki beinaihu, because the concern is you might come to light just with the posel oils, and therefore by making a hybrid of kosher and non-kosher oils, that doesn't work. Okay, sif hey. Chaylev mehutach. Chaylev is animal fat. Mehutach, which has been melted down, so molten animal fat. V'kirvei dogim, and innards, the insides of fish. Ein madlikin bohen. You can't light with the fat and the oils from that. V'im nosen bohen ma'at me'achas mishmonim shemadlikin bohen. And again, if you add some shemen from which is good shemen, then mutar lahadlik bohem. Says Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotan Chav, Chaylev mehutach shehetichu oisei al ha'ar. You melted it on a fire. Or it's melted, sort of pressed chaylev from the insides of the animal. It hasn't congealed. If it's hardened, then the Ran says it's no good. Even by adding oil, it's no good. For Rabbi Ritva, Shepasku Kain ve'viu Rai Yerushalmi. They bring a Rai for this shit of the Yerushalmi. Okay, v'kirvei dogim, says Mishnah Berurah Aleph, shenimechu, which have melted. V'shemen solul she'oisin migalgal eine shel dag. If you've got some sort of oil which comes from the eyeball of the fish, mibsara, from the flesh of the fish, muta afilu be'enei. That's fine. Muta. What's this going on? Yeah, so here, so in hay, we said if you use kirvei dogim and things like that, if you add a bit of oil, then muta lahadlik bohen. Delafi ikka hadin hoya muta b'chaylev mehutach. Now, what's the difference? Why is it in the previous simon if you add a bit of kosher oil to non-kosher oil, you can't do it? So there we said it's a gezerah that you might come to light from posel oils, but here, if you add a bit of shemen, it's a good shemen to these fish innards, we said it's okay. So what's the difference? So the Mishnah Berurah explains in the Chav Beis that if you do ikad din, because ikad din you're allowed to use this stuff, because it does sort of draw itself to the wick, and therefore it's okay. And a drabanan gozer by otu she'ena mehutach. It's just that they said because it's not properly processed, therefore they made a gezerah against it. But when it's mixed with kosher oils, then it's okay. Dahavalei gezerah legezerah, because otherwise it'll be a gezerah legezerah. Okay, now sif vov. Shar kol hashmonim chutz me'elu madlikim bohem. So all other oils you can light with. The mikol mokum shemen zayis mitzvah min hamuvcha. However, it is a mitzvah min hamuvcha to use olive oil, and that is well known. That nowadays, I think it's become even more popular nowadays to try and light, even not with candles, but with shemen zayis. Okay, let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah, and then we'll discuss: is it better actually to use shemen zayis or to use candles? Because the candles nowadays produce a very fine, a very beautiful. Sorry. Yeah, so that's the shaila. So let's take a look. Siv Kotzen Chaf Gimel. So we said it's a mitzvah min hamuvcha to use shemen zayis. Why? Says the Mishnah Berurah Chaf Gimel, tu nimshach acha hapasila tfei mikulahu, because it actually draws after the wick more than other oils. V'gam v'im ein shemen zayis motzon. If a person hasn't got access to shemen zayis, then mitzvah b'shar shmonim she'oren tzolul. Then you can use any other oil which produces a clear light. V'hem koidmen le'er shaiva, and they in fact come before wax candles. V'ner shaiva koidmen le'ner shel chelev, and wax candles come before ner shel chelev, made out of other fats. The Orach v'tzolul, because the ner of a shaiva of wax is clearer than that of other candles. That's what the Matzah Moshe says. Now, so therefore, according to Ad Kan, there is a pecking order. You've got shemen zayis, you've got other shemen, you've got ner shel shaiva, you've got wax candles, and then you've got other candles. However, venerally, to kol zeh lefi inyan haner, it all depends on the actual candle we're talking about. The bener shelonu, says the Mishnah Berurah, are candles shekorin citrin, whatever that is, ner mechomes be'erzach, okay, shetzolel bevada yosim in hashayva. It's actually it's even clearer. The concern that you might come to tilt the wick or something like that is just not there at all. There's no concern of that. That's actually better. And perhaps ulai, it's better than all other shemen to have a bevada leosi lahatos, because you're not going to come and mess around with the wick and tilt it. The ayin mash nichtov lekaman b'simen ayin reish hey. So it comes out, the Mishnah Berurah says ulai, that sometimes the wax candle would actually produce a better light, a clearer light than olive oil. So if you take a look at 12, a very interesting ha'ara. He says, Mevua she'odif afilu mishemen zayis v'chein bi hagon Moshe Feinstein. The Moshe says in Dibros Moshe, she'kavonas ha'mishnah Berurah shevada she'ner shelonu adifim afilu mishemen zayis, that the quality of the candles that we use nowadays are perhaps even better than olive oil. Shari lekamon kosuv she'mut likra b'Shabbos mul ner shelonu. Because further on we're going to say that you're allowed to read next to our candles. Shenikroim citron, whatever these things are. Mishum she'ein bohem chashash shemiyateh shemiyimchot. We're not worried that you're going to tilt anything, because the candle just produces a very nice light, and therefore there's no concern. Ve'ilu keneged neshel shemen, but when it comes to oil, kosuv sham, it says over there, she'also likros shemiyateh. You can't read next to an oil candle, because there is still a concern that you might come to tilt it or to move the oil towards the wick. So you see that wax candles are preferred. So it seems that our candles are preferred to olive oil. The lashon ulai who lav dafka. Ramosha says that the lashon of ulai in the Mishnah Berurah is lav dafka. This is amazing. In the house of the Chazon Ish and the Stipler, they would use regular candles for Shabbos. They would not use olive oil. From early times, however, the minhag in Eretz Yisrael was to use olive oil, because that was always considered, as the Mechaber says, mitzvah min hamuvcha. And it's also preferred for Bnei Chutz La'aretz, even though that wasn't always the minhag, to try and use olive oil. You have got olive oil around to try and use that. And that was indeed the practice, and that's why he ruled Rabbi Yashav would do that. In other words, there are other options. But it seems that if there is olive oil available, that is the preferred. But on the other hand, using candles, which produces a very good light, that's certainly acceptable. And in fact, according to Rav Moshe, his understanding of the Mishnah Berurah, it actually produces a better light. And that was the practice of the Chazon Ish, and that was the practice of the Stipler. There are other things with olive oil as well, lots of, I think, Alpi Kabbalah and other things as well, but just a very geschmack of Balaturim. The Balaturim says on the Pasuk, the opening Pasuk of Tetzaveh, Va'at Tetzaveh es b'nei Yisrael v'yikchu eilecha shemen zayis zoch. Right, that's the Pasuk, of course, talking about the menorah. So the Balaturim, Kedarka B'Kodesh with Gematrias, he says the Gematria of Tetzaveh is 501, which is equal, so Va'ata Tetzaveh, which is the same Gematria as Noshim Tzaveh, command the women. In other words, command the women who are going to be lighting Adlokas Neiros, v'yikchu eilecha shemen zayis zoch. So in the Pasuk, he says there's an allusion to the fact that you should try and use Shemen Zayis. Okay, but either way, whether you use Shemen Zayis or you use candles, it's certainly acceptable. Let's try and just finish off. Says the Mechaber Sif Kotzen Zayin. Korach Zefes, if you wrap Zefes is pitch, or Shaiva or wax, or Chelev or other fats, Soviv Hapsil around the wick, Madlikin Bohen, you can light with that. Says the Mishnah Berurah Haftalad, Korach Zefes, when is it a problem? When you put it in a kli and then you put the wick in the kli, like we do with oil. Because then it's not drawn after the wick properly. But if you wrap it around the wick and then you light it, that's no problem, that's fine. Dafke if the wick itself is a kosher wick. If the wick itself is possible, then wrapping around the possible wick is not going to help you. Says the Mechaber Sif Ches, Hamadlik Sorech Shiadlik Rov Mashayotze Min Hapsila Me'aneh. You should light the majority of the wick that's there, and not just a tiny bit, and then leave it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sorech Shiadlik Kadeshi Halahav Oile Yofe Miyad Sheisalik Yodeh. To make sure that the wick is going to be lighting, is sort of taken hold of the wick properly before you remove your hand away from it. Like it is with the menorah. Min vuadin bener shayva v'chelev, not just shemen but also with other types of candles. Good. Says the Mechaber Tes, ein tzorich lahavhev hapsila. You don't have to singe the wick beforehand. Pirush inyan hahivov. What does hivov mean? Yipol al dovo she'ena nisraf legamrei. That's the word used to describe something which is not burnt fully. V'gamlo ki kaim legamrei, and it is not sort of existing fully. For example, it says al toichlu memenu no. Tirgum yonison mahavhav. So the lashon of raw of no is like something which is sort of partially, it's singed, it's not fully burnt and it's not burnt. But the minig is you light it first and then you extinguish it, so that way it makes the lighting subsequently much more easy. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotzen Chavches u'mikol makom nagu v'af b'nei hakaroch kein shelanu oisin kein, and that seems to be the practice. V'zeh yaseh ish mitchila, and the man should try and do this first. And it will make her lighting very easy, and therefore it will avert the problem of her sort of delaying and maybe going over the Zman, if it's going to be very quick and easy for her to light. If you look at 16, he says that the minhag in the house of the Chaznish, the Stipler, was sheloi lahavev hapsila. They didn't light the wick beforehand. Or bir rishon b'shem hachaznish, very simply, shehu mishum shaner shalanu dolkim yofe below hivhuv. He says the reality is nowadays they just burn very beautifully without it. They can light in an instant, and therefore there's no need anymore. Maybe the wicks of old were a bit more problematic, but the wicks nowadays they burn instantaneously, and therefore there's no problem. Okay, so the husband, the Mishnah Berurah says, should do the singeing over here, or the light it and extinguish it to make it easy for the wife. Okay, nowadays that's not necessary because the candles light very easily, but at least he should set up the hadlokas neres, as we've discussed before. He should have a chelek in the mitzvah. Okay, let's just finish. Yud says the Mechaber, ein madlikin besmartutin afilu b'mechurochin. You shouldn't use shmatas, even if they're singed a bit, to light hadlokas neres. Says the Mishnah Berurah, hainu beloi bigdei pishton hagasim, sort of remnants, leftovers, worn out flax, large thick material, because the light doesn't sort of grab onto them very well. You shouldn't light in an old clay type of receptacle, because it becomes horrible. Unless you burn it properly. If it's like sort of been molded and been fashioned properly. If however it's made out of glass or shalcheres matzupa or glazen cheres, then sure, that's okay. It's not considered so most. And if you've got a poor person who hasn't got any alternative, vaday mute will certainly be okay. Ner Shabbos to Chayva, then, but otherwise he would not be doing Ner Shabbos, which of course is an obligation. So in other words, just to finish this summary, there are certain oils and psilos that you're not allowed to use. Nowadays, Baruch Hashem, they're all the basic stuff that we have is all first class, and so much so that even though the Mechaber says it's mitzvah min hamuvcha to use shemen zayis, there are those amongst them, the Chazon Ish and the Steipler, who would say that using candles nowadays is even preferred. Moshe seems to say that that's also could be the case. However, there are the minhag in Eretz Yisrael certainly is to seem to be used shemen zayis. And that seems the Mechaber says it's mitzvah namuvcha, but either way you've got very good grounds to rely on whether you choose candles or whether you choose shemen zayis.